Donkey Kong on Colecovision was a good game. It was a good launch title for the Colecovision and was probably the best home conversion you could find on the video game system front until the eventual NES release down the line. But in the meantime, here's Donkey Kong Jr. for Colecovision. This sequel to the original Donkey Kong places you in control of Jr. as you're tasked with the quest of saving your old man from the clutches of the evil Mario. For the most part, Donkey Kong Jr. maintains the simple premise established by the original Donkey Kong. Climb your way past various critters while navigating platforms and pitfalls on your way to the top of the screen. In some cases, specifically these screens in particular, you'll need to push key blocks into keyholes that will open up bits of the cage. Once all the keys are in place, Donkey Kong is free for about 5 seconds before settling back into imprisonment. Because there is where he's comfortable, I guess. It's not a complete conversion, however. Of the arcade game's 4 levels, only 3 made it to this Colecovision interpretation of Donkey Kong Jr. The first level, the final level, and the bird level. So you're missing that one electrical level with the sparks, which you could get by playing the Atari 7800 version, and of course, that other home version released by that one company from Japan. You know the one I'm talking about. For the most part, gameplay in Jr. is pretty solid, with an emphasis placed on climbing and platforming. Jr. is a rather versatile climber in that he could stick with one vine for a slow climb upwards, or grab onto a second vine to climb a little faster. Making use of this refined climbing ability, along with the fruit that you could drop on any passing critter for points, is an essential art to survival and progression. Control is simple, functional, and straightforward. For a game like this, you should have good solid control, and that indeed is what you've got here. That said, there's a couple minor quirks such as Jr. having some issues grabbing onto the vine at certain angles, or the occasional clipping issue, but in general, this is indeed a playable version of Jr. with a steady increase in difficulty as you progress through the rounds of play. You've got 4 different skill settings to choose from, and you could play a 1-player or 2-player alternating game, which is usually the case with a lot of Colecovision and video games in general of this time period. Donkey Kong Jr. looks good on the Colecovision, making a fair attempt to recreate the 3 screens of the arcade game that made it to the game, all the while managing their own style. Jr. looks a touch smaller than his arcade sprite and in a way a touch cuter and cuddlier. Donkey Kong maintains his usual self, and Mario looks somewhat like Mario but scruffier. The various critters are visually simple, but you can make them out. The screens themselves are fairly accurate to the source material, with minor details altered for hardware purposes, and the cage even breaks away as you insert keys into place. All in all, not a bad looking version of Jr. Sound-wise, it's also pretty good. You got the background beats and the jingles in there, and they sound pretty decent. The sound effects are so-so, the constant bird tweeting gets annoying after a while, much like Twitter, but the rest of it is not bad. No real complaints in that camp, I think. Overall, Donkey Kong Jr. on Colecovision is one of the better versions of the game to be released on a home video game console in the early 1980s. Despite missing that one electric level, the 3 remaining screens are still true to form, gameplay is solid, it looks the part, and while this is not the best version of Donkey Kong Jr. available out there, the version on the NES takes the cake in that regard. This is still a pretty good conversion and one worth checking out.